Hello friends, it's Alexis, and welcome to my October Battle of the Books. If this is your first time watching one of my Battle of the Books, this is just how I like to do my wrap-up every month. I take all of the covers of the books that I read in the last month, October in this case, and I throw them all into a website called Bracket Fight, and it generates this bracket for me where I have to vote between all of the books I read to determine what my favorite book of the month was. I always like to start these things out with some stats because I enjoy stats. So in the month of October, I read a total of 12 books, 9 physical books, 3 audio, and those break down into 1,610 physical pages and 37 hours and 35 minutes of audiobook. 9 of those books were off of my owned physical TBR. I had 1 DNF and I bought 12 books. So not really doing too great on my reading my physical TBR down thing. I'm kind of replenishing what I'm reading every month. Hopefully 2026 I'll do better. But I think it's time to get into our fight. Starting out strong with our first matchup, we have Killing Stalking Volume 5 by Coogie. This is a manhwa series that I have been slowly working my way through. If you are familiar with it, you understand why I'm having a hard time talking about it. It is very explicit in nature. It has to do with these 2 young men. One of them is a serial killer. The other one was stalking the serial killer until he realized that he was a serial killer, and then the serial killer kidnaps him and has been keeping him as his prisoner for multiple volumes of the series. It's a really brutal story and it's really graphic, and it feels wrong to come on the internet and say that I enjoy them. But at this point, I've read 5 volumes of them. I'm not gonna stop. I own the rest, but I have a hard time reading them sometimes, and I definitely need breaks in between them. So I ended up giving this one a 3-star rating. This volume was very different than the other volumes before it. It was almost less graphic, less brutal. This volume kind of took a change, and it was more of like a romantic storyline, but I don't trust it for 1 second. This guy does not have good intentions. So for me, it wasn't my favorite volume of the series, but it was fine. So 3 stars. And that is going up against What Stalks the Deep by T. Kingfisher. This is the 3rd book in her Sworn Soldier series, following the soldier named Alex Easton as they are traveling around. They keep getting wrapped up into these hauntings and having to figure out what's going on. So in the first one, that was What Moves the Dead. That was a retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. It sort of had to do with these creepy zombie mushroom creatures. The second one was about a sleep paralysis demon, and now this 3rd one was so cool, so unique. I'm not even gonna tell you what it was about. You're gonna have to just go into it and see. But if you are claustrophobic at all, if you have a fear of caves or being underground in tunnels, this one is gonna do a really good job of triggering that fear, because wow, it was tough to read some scenes in this because that's definitely a fear I have. Like, it did a really good job as a horror book, making me feel uncomfortable, making me feel the emotions that the main character was also feeling. So I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars. It was definitely one of my favorite books I read this month. I don't know, out of the series, I feel like I would put What Moves the Dead is my favorite, then What Stalks the Deep, and then the second one, which I'm blanking on the name. What is it called? I can't think of it. It'll be up on the screen. So, while the higher rated book doesn't always win during these fights, it kind of depends on the vibes, on the feelings, on which book had a more lasting impact on me. I am going to go with the higher rated one this time, and What Stalks the Deep will be moving on to the next round. Next up, we have the first book in Amazon's Scared Sexy collection. This is a collection of short story novellas, and they are all monster romances by romance authors we know and love. There are 6 total in the collection. I tried to read them all in October, but I ran out of time towards the end. I have since finished the last 3, but those will be in my November wrap-up. So first up, we have Beautiful Nightmare by Katie Robert. This one was the movie Monsters, Inc., but make it adult, make it X-rated. It was a fun time. It was goofy. It was hard to get the Monsters, Inc. characters out of my head because this one was about a monster, a sleep paralysis demon to be exact, and her job is to sneak into people's bedrooms as they're sleeping, scare them, and feed off of their fear. A lot like in Monsters, Inc., where they are creating energy from the children's screams. This one, it was an adult male she was haunting. It was not children. Thank God. But yeah, it was very similar vibes. She did not feel like she was a good fit for this job. She doesn't like the taste of fear. She doesn't think she's scary. She doesn't like scaring people. So on her very first night on her own, scaring a man, it goes bad. He is more attracted to her than he is scared of her, and it goes from there. But it was fun. It was a cute love story. The steamy scenes were good. I mean, it's Katie Robert. In my opinion, she cannot write a bad sex scene. She's one of my favorite romance smut authors, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars. This is going up against The Haunting of Alejandra by V. Castro, and unfortunately, I did not like this book at all. I probably should have DNF'd it, but it was so short and I was reading it for a challenge for Hallow Weekend Readathon and I owned it physically, so I just wanted to get through it, but I ended up giving this one 2.5 stars. This book was just not written for me. It was all about motherhood, pregnancy, the guilt of being a mother, and I am not a mother. I'm not interested in being a mother, and reading about this stuff was depressing. Alejandra was in a very, very bad mental state for a lot of the book. She was very suicidal, and I just wanted her to get help. I was just screaming at all of the terrible people in the book, mainly her husband, and just hoping that she would get help and somebody would finally treat her the way she deserved. I also don't feel that there was enough horror in the book for me with a title like The Haunting of Alejandra, and knowing that this was a retelling of the La Llorona legend ghost, I thought it would be scarier. I thought there would be more scenes of this ghost, and I feel like there weren't many. I've, for the most part, blocked this book out of my mind because that's how much I disliked it. Like, my favorite scene was at the very ending, and I feel like that was the most horrific scene in the entire book. So overall, this one was just a letdown for me, and Beautiful Nightmare will be our winner. Okay, next up, this is cute because they both kind of have to do with media. So on the left, we have Burn the Negative by Josh Winning, and this one is about a cursed film that was made in the 90s, and just really bad things happened to all of the actors. A bunch of them died or had just really freak accidents, and now, present day, they have the great idea to remake it, and they're surprised when terrible things start happening again. Well, I really liked the premise for this one, and I liked the beginning, but once we got into where people started to die, it was such a long, boring book, and it was so confusing. There kept being these scenes where the main character would just lose her memory and like black out and then come to later, but like as the reader, we weren't getting the information about what was happening during those scenes either. So I just feel like a lot was being left out, and I just didn't really like the ending. I came up with an ending in my head that I thought was going to happen, and I thought that one would have been much better. So I ended up giving this one 2 stars. And that is going up against 13 Months Haunted by Jimmy Giuliano, another standout from the month, one of my favorites. I ended up giving this one 5 stars, so I think it's clear who the winner will be. But this one is also about technology, sort of a cursed technology or haunted in a way. In this one, we are following a librarian and this new girl that moves into town. She starts visiting the library with her mother, and this girl is very strange that she will not touch technology at all. And there are rumors going around the school that she used to live in a haunted house, and her sister and father were killed by the entity that lived in that house. So this one was really, really fun. If you were able to catch the Book Troop live show where I discussed this with Gabby from Gabby Reads and Elizabeth from Reading Riley, you guys know that I really, really liked it. I grew up in the 2000s, so the setting of this was very nostalgic. I was a little younger than our main character was, but there were still a lot of things that I could relate to. And for me, it was just the nostalgia that made this so enjoyable. It was so fun to be reading this scary story set in this time period. And it's one of the few books that actually freaked me out a little. I was reading it in the middle of the night in the dark, and we got to quite a spooky scene, and I had a little bit of trouble falling asleep after that. So obviously, This is going to be our winner, one of my favorites from the month. Now moving on to round 2 on the left side, What Stalks the Deep versus Beautiful Nightmare. These are both, no, I guess What Stalks the Deep is rated a little bit higher because that was 4.5 stars versus a 4. I do think I'm going to go with What Stalks the Deep. It was just more of a full, well-rounded story. It was a lot longer than Beautiful Nightmare. I think Beautiful Nightmare was under 100 pages, and although What Stalks the Deep was a novella, there was just a lot more substance there. We know this character from the ongoing series. The creepy scenes were really, really good. And basing it on my enjoyment, I would definitely rather read more from T. Kingfisher in this series than I would want a longer version of Beautiful Nightmare from Katee Roberts. So What Stalks the Deep, we'll be moving on. And now the hard part. I mean, I know who's going to win just by that half a star, but I really, really liked 13 Months Haunted. Like, I had a really good time with it. I didn't feel bored at all during it, and What Stalks the Deep, I feel like it had a little bit of a slow start. So 13 Months Haunted will be our winner. 13 Months Haunted is going to be our first contender for Best Book of the Month, and now we can move on to the right side. First up on the left, we have Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke and Other Misfortunes by Eric LaRocca. Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke was a reread for me. I originally read this short story novella back in, talk about it in my vlog. I want to say it was like 2022. This was one of my very first extreme horror stories I ever read. And to this day, it has always been my favorite by this author. So I wanted to go back and read the other 2 stories that were in this collection, and I'm really glad I did. This ended up being a really, really solid collection. And if you do end up reading this one, I really recommend reading the author's note at the end because it really brought all of the stories together. He kind of talked about how they're all related and why he put these 3 into a collection together, and it just made me enjoy it like even more than I already did. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars. And that is going up against another one from the Scared Sexy collection. This time we have Falling by Christina Lauren. This one was fine, not my favorite from the collection. This one is about an angel. So we are following a human girl. She goes to this Halloween party. She actually ends up breaking with her loser boyfriend mid-party, and she goes off to find a quiet room, and she runs into this very, very hot man who we find out is an angel, and it was fine. I just don't know if Christina Lauren is an author I really get along with. I've only read one of their full-length novels, and I didn't love it. Like, they're just fine to me. I just feel like I enjoy other romance authors a lot more, but if you think I'm wrong, if you have a favorite Christina Lauren book of all time, you think it's the best romance ever written, please let me know, because obviously I would love to check it out. But this one was just middle of the road for me. I ended up rating it 3 stars. So Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke and Other Misfortunes will be our winner for this round. Our next matchup is cute. Look at the matching houses with the lit up window. Love it. So on the left, we have Old Country by Matt Query and Harrison Query. Finally got around to this one. I actually started reading this last October, ran out of time, so I restarted it this year. It was fine. I enjoyed the premise of it, the idea, a lot more than the execution. Maybe if it had been shorter, maybe the problem is it was just too long and repetitive, but it wasn't the worst thing I read. I still ended up rating it 4 stars. This one is about a couple that buys this plot of land in the Rocky Mountains, I want to say, like this beautiful ranch. They're going to set up a farm. They have mountains all around them, forests. Everything is going great until their neighbors come over to welcome them and have to tell them the bad news that the land is haunted by this ancient spirit, and you have to perform these tasks every season to keep the spirit happy and to keep it from tormenting you. So right away, that is a super creepy premise. Like, I absolutely love that. Like, the idea that something has been on this land that is older than us, that's gonna stay there long past we're gone, and we just have to appease it because it's their land. But the story just kind of fell flat for me. The instances of the spirit interacting with the couple were not as scary as I think they should have been, and there just wasn't enough variety in the interactions. It just followed the same pattern every season. It would appear the same way. They would have to do the same task to get rid of it. So yeah, I just wanted more from it, but I'm being hard on it because I had really high expectations. That is going up against another favorite of the month. This one is Spread Me by Sarah Gailey. This is the third Sarah Gailey book that I've really enjoyed. So I'm really happy to be able to call her a favorite author and just be able to look forward to more stuff from her in the future because I just really like her writing. This one is a weird book. I do not think it's going to be for everybody. This is a book for the freaks, and my favorite way to describe it is John Carpenter's The Thing, but 600 times hornier. This one is about a group of scientists working on a base in the desert when one day they come across a specimen that should not exist, should not be alive. They bring it into their base to study it, and suddenly the crew falls sick with this mysterious illness, and the side effects are very interesting. This one is a short little novella, and I absolutely flew through it. I ate this story up. I could not get enough of it, and every second that I couldn't be reading it, I was just thinking about it. This is the perfect kind of weird book for me. It had me audibly saying what the fuck while reading it, and I love a book that can make me do that. So quite obviously, our winner for this round is going to be Spread Me by Sarah Gailey. I still hate saying that title. And now onto our final matchup of the right side. We have Strange Pictures by Yuketsu versus Hot for Slayer by Ali Hazelwood. So starting on the left, I really enjoyed this book, and I am really looking forward to reading more. I know Yuketsu has another book. I want to say it's called Strange Houses, so I will definitely be picking that up in the near future. This was fun. This was a mix between a mystery and a horror book. There are something like 11 childlike drawings throughout this book that we see while reading it, and then we have to put together the pieces to see how it fits the overall story and find that the drawings are hiding a more sinister meaning than we might see at first. This is another book that was a little bit of a mindfuck because you're seeing this picture, you're not connecting it to what it means. You know, you have no idea the meaning behind it until it's revealed later on in the story. And I had a really good time reading this. I could not solve any of the mysteries myself, but at the same time, they weren't like completely unbelievable. Everything made sense. All of the clues clicked together once everything was revealed. So I think this author did a really great job at connecting all of these stories. No surprise, I gave this one 5 stars. And that is going up against Hot for Slayer, another one from the Scared Sexy collection by Ali Hazelwood. This is a vampire slayer romance, and this one was so good. This was my favorite from the Scared Sexy collection that I read in October. I do have an overall favorite that I read in November, but it was really close between these two because I liked this one a lot. I ended up rating this one 4.5 stars, and I just think it was really fun, really cute, really sexy. I mean, it's not hard to get me when it comes to a vampire romance. Sort of an easy mark for those. This one is another really hard choice, but I think I have to go with Strange Pictures just because it was longer. I think if Hot for Slayer was a full-length novel and we had more time to get to know the characters, to watch the relationship develop, to get a bit more of the cat and mouse chase, because this was enemies to lovers, it's a vampire and the vampire slayer romance, I would have liked this one a lot more, but because it had to be fast, we didn't really have time for slow burn in a short story. Strange Pictures is going to be our winner. Okay, I feel like the winner is clear here. Once I was reminded that I read Spread Me this month, I think it's going to absolutely slaughter the competition on this side because I mean, clearly I have to pick Spread Me for this matchup. And again, this one is more difficult because this is a true 5-star to 5-star head-to-head. But Spread Me was just so good. It was so good. This is exactly the kind of horror I want, and I'm so happy I read it this month. All right, in our final matchup, we have 13 Months Haunted by Jimmy Giuliano versus Spread Me by Sarah Gailey. How am I supposed to pick between these two? I love them both so much. They were both so fun. They were both really, really good horror books. Like, how great to have so many 5-star horror books in October. What more could I ask for? And maybe it is my love for the movie The Thing clouding my judgment, but I have to go with Spread Me. Like, it absolutely kills all other books on this list. Hands down, my favorite book I read in October. It just feels right. So Spread Me will be our winner for my best book in October. These are always so fun to film, as long as I'm not like struggling to pick a favorite, because I genuinely forget what I've read throughout the month and I don't pit them against each other when I'm reading. So going back at the end of it to review everything I've read and really pick a favorite, it's just so fun to be reminded of all of the incredible books I got to read last month. But that is going to be all from me. So please let me know what your favorite book of October was. And if you would just like to leave me an emoji to let me know you were here, let's go with the bacteria germ emoji for Spread Me, because if you've read it, you know. But as always, friends, I hope you read a good book today, and I will see you soon in my next one. Bye.